I just wanted to hold my daughter. I heard the alarms, but I couldn't move. The light pulled me away, and I let it. Then, I saw him. Jesus, standing right in front of me.
My name is Sarah Levy. I'm a 52-year-old Jewish woman from Haifa, Israel. What happened to me on March 28, 2025, completely turned my world upside down. I wasn't religious. I wasn't even searching. But after a tragic accident, I came face to face with a reality I never expected, one no one had ever prepared me for. In those moments beyond death, Jesus himself revealed things to me about Israel, about America, and even about Donald Trump, things that will shake you to the core. I'm sharing this now because he asked me to. Please, listen carefully. This isn't about politics. This is about eternity. I'll never forget that morning. It started just like any other. I was running late, nothing new, and trying to catch the bus to my office job in downtown Haifa. My head was full of everyday distractions, emails, errands, groceries, the usual noise of life. The streets were crowded, cars honking, people weaving through traffic. Faith wasn't even on my radar. Sure, I was born Jewish, but I wasn't observant. I valued tradition, culture, and family. But religion? God? He felt far away. I remember glancing down at my phone, scrolling mindlessly, when I suddenly heard the screeching of tires. Louder than usual, too loud, and then the bus jumped the curb. I didn't even have time to scream. In an instant, metal met flesh, my flesh. It felt like getting hit by a freight train. My body crumpled. I heard shouting, sirens in the distance. But here's the strange part. I didn't feel pain. Instead, I felt peace. As impossible as it sounds, I was calm. It was like I was watching a movie of myself from the outside. I saw people rushing toward my body, but I was no longer in it. I was above it, floating. Then I heard a voice, clear, strong, call my name. Sarah Levy, you are not finished yet. I looked around, but I couldn't see anyone. And that's when everything changed. The street, the cars, the chaos, all of it began to blur, like watercolor paint running in the rain. And then, in a single breath, it vanished. I wasn't in Haifa anymore. And that's when things took an even stranger turn. After being hit by a bus in Haifa, I suddenly found myself standing in Dizengoff Square in Tel Aviv. But it wasn't the Tel Aviv I knew. The square was eerily empty, completely silent, not the lively, bustling place I remembered. This is not the Tel Aviv of Earth, the same voice said. You are seeing its spiritual reflection. Before I could fully grasp what that meant, the air around me shifted, like a ripple or vibration moving through it. Then I saw something horrifying unfold right in front of me, a terror attack happening in slow motion. A bomb exploded. People ran. Screams pierced the silence. It was devastating. Time felt strange, stretched, almost suspended. But what shook me the most wasn't just what I saw. It was what I felt. I wasn't just watching. I was experiencing every emotion, every desperate prayer, every cry for help in the spirit. I could feel people reaching out to God, Jews, Muslims, even those who didn't believe in anything, all calling out in their final moments. And each cry rose like a light into the heavens. Pain on earth creates a response in heaven, the voice said, but few truly understand the power of a single cry. Then everything froze, like the scene had been paused in midair. And that's when I saw him. A man stood in the center of it all, dressed in simple white. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't overwhelmed. His presence was calm, like still water in the middle of a storm. It was Jesus, but not like the version I'd seen in paintings. He looked Jewish, like someone who could have easily sat at my family's Shabbat table. And his eyes were unlike anything I'd ever seen. They held both deep love and sorrow, so much sorrow. Sarah, he said. Just hearing my name and his voice unraveled me. Come, there is more you must see. As soon as he spoke, the entire scene, the explosion, the people, even Tel Aviv itself, began to fade like smoke dissolving into the air. Suddenly, we were standing in a vast open space. There was no sky, no ground, just light. But it wasn't harsh or blinding. This light was alive. It pulsed like the very heartbeat of creation. "You are now in the threshold between time and eternity," Jesus said. I couldn't speak. Words felt too small, but my thoughts were completely exposed. Every doubt I'd ever had, every question I'd buried, they all lay open before him. "You never believed in me," he said softly, not with judgment, but with deep understanding. "Yet I have always known you." In that moment, I realized something I'd never seen before. He wasn't a foreign god. He wasn't an outsider to my people. He was the Lion of Judah, the very Messiah we had longed for, prayed for, and yet somehow missed. Then he reached out his hand, and suddenly, it was like layers of history began unfolding before my eyes. I saw Israel's story come alive, the covenant, the prophets. I saw Moses, David, Esther, their prayers still alive, still echoing in eternity. In what felt like a heavenly realm, Jesus looked at me and said, "Israel's story isn't over, but her heart must return to me, not to politics, not to power." Those words cut through every false belief I'd carried. It was like light piercing through fog. Then he showed me the nations. I suddenly found myself suspended above what looked like a map of the world, but it wasn't the geography we know. Each nation was connected by threads of light. Some threads were vibrant and glowing, full of life. Others were dim, frayed, or nearly broken. I watched as Israel's thread pulsed and intertwined with another glowing thread, America. "Their destinies are woven together by my design," Jesus explained, "but the enemy is working to sever what I have joined." He pointed toward areas where shadows crept in, not through armies or violence, but through ideas, lies, and cultural shifts carefully designed to distort truth. Then I saw someone instantly recognizable. Bold, brash, and familiar. Donald Trump. "He is not a savior," Jesus said clearly, "but he was a disruptor, permitted to shake systems that resisted my hand." I could feel the spiritual warfare surrounding him. This wasn't about politics. It was about timing. His rise, his fall, and his influence were all part of a bigger divine strategy. "This isn't about one man," Jesus emphasized. "It's about awakening my people to the time they are living in." He turned to me again, and his gaze pierced through to my core. "Sarah, when you return, you must speak, not with fear, but with clarity. My people are perishing for lack of knowledge." As he spoke those words, the map began to fade, but the message stayed burned into my heart. "Prepare them. Tell them," he said. "The time isn't someday. The time is now." As the map disappeared completely, I found myself standing before a new figure, unlike anyone or anything I'd ever seen. This was not Jesus, not yet. This was someone else, a man made entirely of light. His form shifted fluidly, but remained perfectly still. His robe shimmered with ancient Hebrew script, glowing letters that moved like they were alive, breathing. Though he didn't speak with a voice, I heard him clearly inside my spirit. "Sarah, daughter of Levi, you were known before the stars were hung in the sky." These weren't poetic words. They carried power. I felt my entire life rush through me, not as memories, but as threads in a much larger tapestry. "You were brought here not for reward," the man of light said, "but for revelation." He extended his hand, and between his fingers appeared a scroll, made not of paper but of pure living light. Symbols flowed across it like rivers, names, events, timelines. "This is the scroll of nations," he said. "Very few are permitted to see it." As the scroll began to unfold, I saw Israel's name burn with a brilliant intensity. But what stunned me was how it was connected to names I didn't expect: Persia, America, Russia, even China, all interwoven in a living design of light and shadow. "Prophecy," the man continued, "is not a prediction. It's a reflection of alignment, of choices made in the light or in the dark." Then I saw leaders rise and fall. Some of those used by God were aware of it, others completely unaware. Yet every decision made echoed through the scroll, altering the course of history. Then the man of light said something that sent chills through me. "The time for playing religion is over. Israel's awakening will shake the earth. But first, she must see her Messiah." At that moment, a presence far greater than his approached. I didn't need to be told. I knew instantly. It was him. As Jesus came closer, the scroll of nations lifted between us, hovering in the air. His eyes, oh his eyes, they held the weight of everything. In them I saw all of it. Every nation, every soul, past, present, and future, reflected at once. He placed his hand gently over the scroll, and the symbols pulsed with radiant light. "Sarah," he said, "what you're seeing is not set in stone. Intercession can change what pride would otherwise destroy." Then he showed me glimpses, not of warplanes or armies, but of people. Ordinary people praying, small gatherings, individuals kneeling alone in their homes, and their prayers. They weren't fragile whispers, they were fierce and effective, cutting through spiritual darkness, changing the threads of history on the scroll. I saw Israel again. But now I noticed something I hadn't before: the frayed edges, the compromises, the idolatries disguised as progress. Yet even in the midst of that weakness, I saw small embers, glowing, steady, unshakable. "These," Jesus said, "are my remnant, those who seek not power, but my presence." Then America's thread came into view. It was trembling, under pressure, under siege. A fierce spiritual battle raged, not over politics, but over identity. "As Israel's heart returns to me," he said, "America's clarity will also be restored." But the war is spiritual, not political. The scroll began to roll up, sealing that moment in eternity. His next words weren't filled with panic, they were full of purpose and power. "Time is short, but grace is still enough." Everything I thought I understood about faith, religion, and history crumbled in that instant. Jesus stood before me, not just as a gentle teacher, but as the Lion of Judah. His presence radiated such power it felt like waves moving through me. His feet seemed planted in the very soil of Jerusalem, yet he stood in this timeless realm. "Sarah," he said, "you've waited for me, though you didn't know it, but I've never turned away from you." His voice shook everything inside me. There was no doubt. This was not a foreign Messiah. He was the very root of Israel's hope, the one the prophets had seen dimly, now standing in fullness before me. "I came for the lost sheep of Israel," he said, "and I am coming again, for those who are ready to truly see." Suddenly, we were surrounded by visions: the Wailing Wall, the desert, synagogues filled with worshippers. Over all of it, a great tension hung in the air, like heaven itself was leaning in, waiting. "Israel's blindness was never a punishment," Jesus said gently. "It was part of the mystery. But now, the veil is lifting." I wept, for my people, for myself. "Do not be afraid," he said. "A remnant will rise, and you, Sarah, will be one of the voices among them." Then he placed his hand over my heart, and in that moment, every wall inside me crumbled. Everything in me that had resisted, doubt, pride, fear, was undone. And I knew, without a doubt, I could no longer doubt it. Yeshua, Jesus, was and always had been the promised Messiah of my people. As my tears fell, Jesus raised his hand, and once again, the realm around us shifted. I now saw Israel, not as a nation with borders and politics, but as a spiritual gateway, a threshold between heaven and earth. "Israel is my timepiece," he said. "The world watches her politics, but heaven watches her heart." He showed me deep layers of Israel's identity: the covenant, the land, the people. But more than that, I saw the intense spiritual warfare surrounding her divine purpose. This wasn't about land disputes or global diplomacy. It was about influence. The enemy wasn't trying to conquer Israel physically, but spiritually, to redefine her calling, to make her a symbol of tolerance without truth, of unity without holiness. I saw movements rising, both inside and outside the land, attempting to reshape her, disconnecting her from her sacred covenant with God. And yet, there was hope. Scattered throughout the land were small but powerful gatherings, underground prayer circles, messianic believers, quietly interceding. "These," Jesus said, "are my warriors. Their prayers thunder louder in heaven than the decrees of nations." I was shown how every festival, every Shabbat, every ancient song sung in true faith, These weren't just rituals. They were spiritual keys, unlocking divine purpose across the world. Then he spoke something that pierced my soul. As Israel returns to me, she will spark revival, even in places long thought spiritually dead. Her role was never just to survive, it was to awaken. She is the catalyst for global revival. Then he looked at me. Sarah, tell them. Tell my people, they are more than survivors. They are carriers of my glory. As that vision of Israel began to fade, the scene shifted again. Now I saw America, not as a country on a map, but as a living body. Its highways were like veins, its breath, the prayers of its people, but its heart was flickering. America's destiny was never political, Jesus said. It was always spiritual. I saw unseen forces pulling at the soul of the nation, ideologies that wore the mask of enlightenment, divisions dressed up as progress. The threads connecting America to Israel were growing thin, not through war or hatred, but through forgetfulness. Her strength, he said gently, was never in might, but in mercy. As she forgets me, her foundations begin to tremble. And yet again, there was hope. I saw small points of light scattered across the land. These weren't massive churches or towering institutions. They were humble homes, quiet prayer closets, and simple believers who refused to bow to cultural idols. These are the embers, Jesus said, and they will carry the flame. Oh, when structures fall, Jesus said, it is not to destroy, but to purify. I was shown a coming shaking, one that would test the very foundation of nations, especially America. This wasn't about doom, it was an invitation to return, to realign. America's identity stands at a crossroads, Jesus said. Her restoration is tied not to politics, but to her alignment with my heart and with Israel. Time felt urgent. That part hit me deeply. Then, emerging from the vision of America, I saw a familiar figure, Donald Trump. But here, in this realm, he wasn't a politician or celebrity. He stood in the spirit as a disruptor, a catalyst on a battlefield far deeper than any political arena. Understand this, Sarah, Jesus said. I don't choose vessels because they're perfect. I choose them because they serve my purpose. I saw how Trump's rise was like a stone thrown into still water. Ripples spread out, disrupting both human and demonic agendas. He wasn't the solution. He was a question mark, a mirror forcing hidden things to surface. But the battle was never about him. It was about timing, the moment his presence represented. Jesus showed me battles playing out, not in Congress or courts, but in spiritual realms. I saw accusations, divine interventions, and heavenly decrees being released. His role isn't over, Jesus said, but it is shifting. And then, he gave a warning. The focus must return to me, not to men. Beware the deception of hoping in political saviors while neglecting the true power of prayer and repentance. Jesus reminded me, I use kings and disruptors, but my kingdom is not of this world. Then I saw a new vision, believers awakening to who they really are. They realized their power wasn't in ballots or elections, but in boldness before my throne. Trump stirred the waters, he said, but now my people must walk upon them. The vision expanded. I saw the world, not as separate countries, but as a vast spiritual battlefield. Nations weren't fighting over land. They were fighting over souls. This, Jesus said, is the real war, not against flesh and blood, but against powers, principalities, and lies designed to enslave minds. I saw shadows covering media, education, and entertainment, reshaping truth into subtle deception. Most people didn't even realize it. But then I saw them. Intercessors. Nameless, faceless believers praying in secret places. Their prayers pierced the darkness like arrows of fire. These are my hidden ones, Jesus said. In 1 hour of prayer, they accomplish more than years of human strategy. Then I saw Israel again, but this time, as her people returned to covenant, her spiritual influence radiated outward, pushing back darkness far beyond her borders. The enemy fears an awakened Israel, Jesus said, because her voice shakes spiritual foundations. I watched as spiritual alliances formed between nations, not through politics, but through faith. A web of light stretched across continents, a global network of revival. The harvest is great, he said, "but so is the deception. My people must discern the times." Jesus turned to me again. His eyes were filled with deep love and sorrow. "This is not the end," he said. "This is the separation, wheat from tares, truth from illusion." Then, his focus returned to Israel. I saw elderly women in Jerusalem, hands trembling, rocking gently as they whispered the Psalms. I saw young soldiers at checkpoints, murmuring quiet prayers under their breath. I saw children, wide-eyed, reciting ancient blessings. Each word, each breath, rose like incense, forming a shield of light around the nation. "These are not old traditions," Jesus said. "They are weapons, they are shields, they sustain what politics cannot." He showed me moments in history when Israel should have fallen, yet invisible hands intervened because of these quiet, faithful prayers. But I also saw something heartbreaking. Many Jewish people had disconnected from the spiritual power of their own heritage. Their prayers had become rituals without revelation. "They recite my words," Jesus said, "but do not see me within them." His voice was filled with sorrow, but also hope. Suddenly I saw a wave of awakening. Jewish believers, young and old, coming alive to the truth of Yeshua. Their prayers combined ancient power with fresh revelation. The result was like an explosion of light in the spiritual realm. "These," Jesus said, "are the torchbearers. They will redig the ancient wells. They will call Israel home to me." Then he looked at me with urgency. "Tell them, Sarah. Their prayers are heard. Their covenant is eternal. But the time to awaken is now. The images of praying mothers, fathers, soldiers, and children, they've never left me. They were more real than any headline. And I understood, we, my people, are standing on the edge of the greatest spiritual awakening since the days of the prophets." Then Jesus' face grew somber again. "Sarah, now you must see what deceives them." In an instant, the light didn't turn to darkness. It turned to something more dangerous, a false glow. It was beautiful, seductive. I saw movements rising in Israel, cloaked in. I saw a rising deception, words like unity, peace, and progress wrapped in light, but rooted in lies. "This is the deception," Jesus said, "a peace without me, a covenant of convenience, not consecration. Leaders signed accords that seemed righteous but carried spiritual compromise. Israel was being asked to trade her divine identity for global acceptance. The pressure was subtle, but real. Even faithful hearts were being lulled into silence. They'll speak of harmony, he warned, but ask you to forget who you are. I saw Israel being reshaped, not by force but seduction. Yet in the shadows I also saw believers, Messianic Jews, quiet intercessors standing in the gap. They didn't shout, they wept, and their prayers pierced the illusion like fire. "This is not a political war," Jesus said. "It's a spiritual seduction. The only antidote is truth, spoken in love, bathed in prayer." He widened my view, showing nations falling under the same deception. Churches compromising to stay relevant, governments enforcing confusion. "This is not just Israel's test," he said. "It's the sifting of the earth." But even in the darkness, light broke through. Secret revivals in Iran, underground worship in China, families in America rediscovering scripture. A generation in Europe asking, "Have we missed him?" "This is not about platforms," Jesus said. "It's about presence. As Israel awakens, so will the nations. Her eyes will help others see." I saw a global web, believers united not by denomination, but desperation for the real Jesus. The shaking will increase, but it will reveal gold. Then Jesus showed me a field, wheat and tares growing together. At first, they looked the same, but when the wind of the Spirit blew, the wheat bowed, the tares resisted. "This is how I separate," he said. "No violence, just my Spirit revealing the true from the false." I saw proud leaders fall and humble servants rise. "Many who are first will be last," he said. For Israel, the choice would be clear, compromise or consecration. Cultural Jews would face truth. Messianic believers would rise with clarity. "This is not punishment, it's purification," Jesus said. A bride made ready. Then he turned to me. "Sarah, tell them, this is the hour of decision." I felt unworthy, but Jesus stepped close. "You're not chosen because you're perfect," he said. "You're chosen because you're willing." He placed his hand over my heart, and I felt the weight of a calling. "You will speak, you will write, you will warn, and invite." I saw myself sharing this message in small gatherings, no fanfare but deep impact. Hearts opened, eyes wept, chains broke, some turned away, but others awakened. "Speak of my love, speak of my covenant, speak of my return," he said. As his hand lifted, a seal remained on my spirit. "You have seen, you have heard, now go." And I knew I would never be the same. The old me died on a street in Haifa, the new me carries fire. "Time is short," Jesus said, "but my mercy is great. Call them to me." One moment I was in glory. The next, I slammed back into my broken body on the pavement in Haifa. No pulse for 4 minutes, no oxygen. The doctors called it a miracle, but I knew why I came back. Jesus sent me. In that encounter, he marked my heart, and he gave me a mission. You will tell them, Sarah. So I'm telling you now, because this message isn't just for me. Time is short. This isn't about politics or religion. It's about a spiritual reality that many are asleep to. Israel is at a crossroads. Nations are shaking. Deception is rising, but so is hope. Jesus didn't show me doom. He showed me mercy, urgency, and a path forward. Maybe you've felt it, the stirring in your spirit, the sense that this world isn't what it seems. Maybe you've drifted, unsure where truth lives anymore. I'm here to tell you, Jesus is truth. He's not a foreign God. He is the Lion of Judah, our promised Messiah. This is a wake-up call to Jews and Gentiles alike. Revival will come, but it starts in the heart, not the headlines. You don't need all the answers. You just need to say, "Here I am, Lord." Open my eyes. I survived that accident for this moment, to reach you. Jesus is alive. He is moving. He is coming. Not someday, now. The earth is already trembling with his steps. Don't sleep through this hour. This is your moment. With love and urgency, Sarah.